I never thought I'd be the kind of person to write something like this, but here I am. Maybe someone out there needs to hear it. The story isn't pretty, but it's real. It's about betrayal, heartbreak, and a plan I never thought I'd have to execute. It all started when I finally got the news I'd feared for years. I was infertile. Not just a little bit, either completely unable to have children. The doctor's words echoed in my mind, and I could feel my stomach twist. I'd always wanted a big family. I dreamed about the kids I'd never get to hold. And suddenly, everything felt hollow, like I'd been robbed of something I never even really had but still desperately wanted. That night, I sat alone on the couch, staring at the flickering light of the TV. My mind was racing, trying to process how to tell my wife. She'd been my partner for 6 years, and I loved her more than anything. But that night, as I reached for my phone to Google living childless, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There were messages, hidden messages, tucked away in a private chat app I never knew she had. I saw her name pop up on the screen, and next to it, a message from someone I knew all too well, my best friend, Mark. The words were intimate, too intimate, flirtatious. And worse, I saw their plans to meet up later that week. My hand trembled. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. I felt a rush of heat in my chest, then a cold numbness taking over. My palms slicked with sweat. How long had this been going on? I'd never suspected a thing. Mark had always been my guy, trusted him with everything. And now I found out he'd lied about being sterile. I'd seen the test results with my own eyes, hidden in a drawer. Mark had told me he couldn't have kids, and I'd believed him. Turns out he'd lied just as much as. The worst part was I'd been blind, completely blind. I'd been focused on my own pain, my infertility, my fears. I never thought to look for the truth about Mark. But there it was, right in front of me. The betrayal stung worse than I can put into words. It was like being punched in the gut, then dragged through the dirt. I closed the app and sat there, stunned. My mind kept replaying the evidence like a broken record. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I just sat there, numb. I had to decide what to do. Do I confront them both, or do I just cut ties and walk away? But I knew one thing: I couldn't let this slide. Not without a fight. That's when the plan started to take shape. The anger simmered in my chest, sharp and hot. I knew I wouldn't let them get away with this, not without consequences. I wanted to make them hurt, to make them understand that betrayal like this has a price. But I also knew I had to be smart. No rash moves, no shouting. I needed proof, a way to catch them in the act if I could. I started digging deeper. I knew Mark's routines, his habits, where he hung out. Schedule, too. I wanted to catch them in the act, or at least get enough to make a clean, devastating confrontation. I kept telling myself I'd be calm, cold, collected, but inside my mind was racing, plotting every step. I was already planning how I'd hand them their punishment, silent but deadly. That night I sat in my dark living room, feeling the weight of what I'd uncovered. My hands clenched into fists, my vision blurred with a mixture of heartbreak and rage. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this was just the beginning. They thought they could get away with it. They thought I'd never find out, but I would show them differently. I would make sure they regret crossing that line. And so, with my heart pounding a little louder than before, I decided I'd wait. Wait until I had everything I needed. Then I'd strike. When they least expected it, that's when the real game would begin. And I'd be the one in control. Over the next few days, I kept my cool on the surface, but inside I was all fire. Every moment I wasn't working or pretending to be normal, I was scheming, digging. I knew I couldn't just confront and Mark without evidence. They'd deny everything. They'd lie. I had to catch them in the or at least get solid proof that couldn't be explained away. I started by installing a hidden camera in the bedroom, a small, barely noticeable device I found online. I didn't want to tip them off until I was ready. I also set up a fake Facebook account, one that mimicked what a new woman might contact Mark with. I wanted to bait him, see if he'd take the bait. I even left my phone in the car one day, pretending I was too busy to check messages, while I monitored the app remotely. My stomach clenched every time I saw a new message come through. Nothing concrete yet, but I was close. It was just a matter of time. I also started paying close attention to his routines. She was oddly distant, distracted. I noticed her leaving her phone face down more often, and her excuses about work trips or meeting friends started sounding hollow. One night I decided to go further. I set a trap. I left my phone in the house with a recording app running in the background. I told her I was going out for a drink and wouldn't be back until late. I watched her through the window, feeling a mix of anger and hope. When I returned, the house was quiet. I grabbed my phone, played the recording, and my stomach sank instantly. It was her voice, unmistakable, whispering to someone, no, two someones, about plans, about how she missed him, how she couldn't wait to see him. And then I heard Mark's voice, smooth and familiar, promising to see her soon. The words hit me like a punch. They thought they'd covered their tracks, but I had enough now. Evidence. Proof that went beyond the messages. I sat there, feeling the cold sweat on my forehead. My fingers clenched the phone so tight I thought they might break. My mind spun with fury. I had what I needed, a clear picture of their betrayal, but I also knew I had to be smart. If I rushed in blind, I'd risk losing everything or looking like a crazy person. That's when I started planning my countermove. I'd confront first, face her with the truth, see how she'd react. But I wouldn't do it just yet. I needed her to slip up again, to make a mistake I could use against her. Meanwhile, I would prepare my revenge carefully. No impulsive rage, just cold, calculated justice. I also reached out to a lawyer just to understand my rights. If I decided to take things further, I wanted to be ready. I felt that familiar knot tighten in my stomach as I thought about what was coming. I was about to face the biggest fight of my life, and I couldn't afford to be weak. One thing was clear: I was done trusting either of them. I'd been naive, too hopeful for a happy ending. But life had other plans, plans that involved exposing lies, breaking hearts, and making sure they understood the pain they'd inflicted. If they thought they could cheat and walk away, they had another thing coming. That night I sat on the porch, staring at the stars. My hands were cold, but my mind felt rage-hot. I knew exactly what I'd do next. It was time to face the music. I'd confront, lay everything out on the table, and then decide what came after. I was done playing nice. I was done being the victim. This was going to end one way or another, and I already knew what I would do if she had tried to lie her way out. I'd make sure she never forgot it. The plan was simple, brutal in its own way. I'd give her a taste of her own medicine. Now I just had to find the right moment, the right words, and then I would finally get the closure I needed. But first I had to wait. Wait for her to slip, for Mark to make one more mistake, and then I'd be ready. The pieces were falling into place. I could feel it. The game was about to change, and I'd be the one calling the shots. The day of the confrontation finally came sooner than I expected. I'd been watching, waiting, and planning, and odd behavior kept escalating. She was more distracted, more secretive. I saw her lying about where she'd been, fidgeting when I asked questions. It was like she was walking a tightrope, and I could tell she was starting to crack under the pressure. I decided that evening I'd confront her. No more waiting in the shadows. I wanted her to know I had everything, the recordings, the messages, the evidence. I was ready to blow this wide open. The moment I saw her come home from work, I knew it was time. She stepped inside, dropping her bag on the couch. Her face was pale and she avoided eye contact. I kept my voice steady, cold even. "We need to talk now." She hesitated, then sat down slowly as if she already knew. "What's wrong?" I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The room filled with her voice, soft but unmistakable. I saw her shoulders tighten, her face drain of color. The truth hit her like a freight train. "Is this what I think it is?" I asked, voice low and controlled. Her lips trembled. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered. "Oh, I think it is." I said, voice sharp. "You've been sneaking around, lying. I saw the messages. I saw your plans with Mark. How long has this been going on?" She looked down, tears brimming. It's complicated," she mumbled. "Not anymore. I don't care about your excuses. I just want to know why." My fists clenched and I feel the heat rising in my cheeks. "You lied about Mark being sterile. You lied about everything. How long did you two think you could get away with this?" She shook her head, trembling. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just," she choked, unable to finish. "Save it," I snapped. "You didn't mean for it. That's a load of crap. You cheated with my best friend right after I found out I can't have children. You knew how much that meant to me, didn't you?" She looked away, tears streaming down her face. "I was lonely. I felt abandoned. I didn't know how to tell you about the infertility, and Mark, he was there. He was the only one who made me feel alive again. The room felt like it was closing in. My stomach twisted in anger, but I kept my voice cold. You crossed a line, and Mark, you lied about being sterile because you wanted to be with her with him, even if it meant breaking me. She looked up, eyes pleading. Please don't do this, I love you. I shook my head. Love, that's funny. Did you love me enough to ruin everything we had? Or was I just convenient, someone to hide behind while you played your little game? The words cut deep, but I pressed on. I want you out of my house. Your bags are in the car. Don't come back, not ever. That night I packed her stuff myself, watching her pack in silence. I felt nothing but cold fury. She begged, she cried, but I didn't listen. My stomach was churning, my head pounding. This wasn't just heartbreak, it was betrayal on a scale I couldn't forgive. Later I sat alone, the house eerily empty without her. The silence was deafening. I kept replaying everything, trying to understand how I got here. How I let myself trust her, how I let myself believe that everything was okay. It was. It had never been. As I stared at the empty doorway, a dark thought crept into my mind. Revenge. That's what I needed. Not just to hurt her, I needed her to feel what I felt, to know what betrayal costs. I wasn't naive anymore. I was done being the victim. I pulled out my phone and started to plan. I had what I needed now. The evidence was solid. The plan was simple: expose everything publicly, ruin their reputation, make sure they pay for what they did. I'd make sure they knew the pain they caused, and I'd do it in a way that left no room for doubt. The first step was to go to Mark's house, see if I could catch him alone. If I did, I'd confront him directly, no warnings. I wanted him to see me coming. Then I'd leak the evidence online, make it impossible for them to deny or cover it up. My jaw clenched as I looked at the photos and recordings on my phone. I was done being the silent victim. I was about to turn the tables hard. I didn't care about legalities or propriety anymore. I just wanted them to feel the same cold betrayal I had. Tonight I would make my move. And when I did, everything would change. I already felt the surge of satisfaction. The game was on. The next day I woke up with a new kind of clarity. I had the evidence, the plan, and a burning desire to make them feel what I'd been feeling: devastation, betrayal, and outrage. I decided to hit Mark first. If I could catch him alone, I'd confront him directly. No hiding, no sneaking around. I wanted him to see me coming, to understand what I was capable of. I parked just outside his house, parked far enough so he wouldn't see me immediately, then I waited. I stared at his window, feeling my fists tighten as I saw him move inside. I took a deep breath. This was it. No turning back now. I slipped out of the car, my stomach twisting with a mix of adrenaline and anger. I straightened my spine, walked up to his door, and rang the bell. He answered quickly, surprised to see me. "Hey man, what are you doing here?" His voice was casual, but I saw the flicker of apprehension in his eyes. "We need to talk," I said, voice cold and steady. "Just you and me." He hesitated, then stepped aside. "Okay, come in." I followed him into his living room, where I'd already prepared my words. "You lied to me," I started, pulling out my phone. "About being sterile, about everything. I caught the messages. You thought you could hide this forever." His face turned pale. "Look, man, I didn't want to hurt you. We got carried away." I shook my head, feeling my jaw tight. "Carried away, that's your excuse. You knew what you were doing. You knew she was married, and you still went after her. How long has this been going on?" He looked down, silent for a moment. "A couple of months, maybe longer. I didn't think it would go this far." I stepped closer, my voice low and threatening. "It's over now. I'm not leaving this without making sure everyone knows exactly what you both did. I've got proof, screenshots, recordings, everything, and I'm about to leak it all online." His eyes widened. "You wouldn't do that. You're better than that." I smirked, feeling a rush of satisfaction. "You're damn right I am, because unlike you, I don't hide behind lies. You wanted to play dirty. Well, now I'm playing dirty too." I turned to leave, then paused. "You mess with me, Mark, and I promise I'll make sure your reputation in the gutter. You think I'm angry. Now you haven't seen anything yet." As I stepped out of his house, I felt a strange sense of calm. I'd done what I set out to do. The evidence was in my hands, and I knew exactly how I'd use it. The next step was, I was ready for that confrontation too. But for now, Mark's face kept replaying in my mind, the disbelief, the guilt. That satisfaction of knowing I'd got the upper hand. I got back in my car and pulled out my phone, opening the file with all the recordings. I started drafting the post I'd upload online. I wanted everyone to see what kind of person really was. I'd give her the chance to deny it, to explain herself, but I knew the truth was out now. Her reputation was about to take a hit. I could feel the adrenaline fatting into something colder. Revenge was my new fuel. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was calculated, ruthless even. The floodgates had opened, and I was ready to let everything spill. Later that evening, I sat in front of my laptop, carefully reviewing what I'd post. I paused, took a deep breath, and then hit publish. The message was simple but devastating: an honest account, evidence embedded, and a warning for anyone who thought betrayal was harmless. I closed the laptop, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. It was done. The damage was out there. Now all I had to do was wait and see how they'd respond. One thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same. I had taken control again, and they had no idea what was coming next. My stomach was still tight, but I told myself I'd be strong. This was my life now, and I wasn't going to let them destroy it. I'd stand tall, even if it meant burning everything down around me. The worst was over, or so I thought. But I knew the fallout had only just begun. The fallout was immediate and fierce. Within hours of posting the story with all the evidence, my phone started ringing nonstop. Texts, messages, calls from friends, family, and even some acquaintances I'd never expected to hear from. Word traveled fast. People I knew, people I didn't, everyone had an opinion. Some criticized me for airing dirty laundry, others congratulated me for finally standing up. But the majority, I could tell, were stunned, some even sympathetic. Friends started reaching out, trying to understand what happened. I ignored most of the messages, but one stood out. It was from her sister. "You're better off without her," it read. That moment, I realized I'd crossed a line, and yet I didn't care. I'd been betrayed so deeply I'd lost all of my usual filters. I wanted her to feel the chaos I was drowning in. Mark hadn't responded publicly, but I saw he was deleting old messages, trying to scrub his reputation. I knew the damage was done. Rumors would spread, and I was ready to let them. My plan was to make sure everyone knew's true character, and I had the evidence to back it up. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, ashamed. Meanwhile, contacted me finally. Her voice was shaky, full of regret and panic. "Please, let's talk," she begged over the phone. I took a breath, feeling my chest tighten. "There's nothing to say. You lied to me for months, betrayed me with my best friend. You lost any right to talk to me. You made your choice," she sobbed, desperately trying to justify herself. "I was lonely. I didn't mean for it to get this far. Please, I still love you." That made my stomach churn. Love, that word had lost all meaning. "You want my forgiveness after all this?" "Sorry, that ship sailed months ago. You're out of my life now, and I'm done caring what you think." I hung up, feeling a strange sense of relief mixed with an overwhelming emptiness. The house was eerily quiet. I looked around at the empty space where she'd been. It was surreal, like waking up from a nightmare I'd created myself. I'd done what I set out to do, expose her, and now I had to sit with the aftermath. But here, where things got interesting, I realized I'd left some loose ends. She might try to come back, to spin her story, deny everything. I couldn't let that happen. I needed to make sure she couldn't manipulate the situation anymore. I decided to go a step further, publicly, permanently. I gathered all the screenshots, recordings, and damning messages. I drafted a detailed post explaining everything. My plan was to leverage the social media frenzy and make her reputation collapse completely. I knew it wasn't just about revenge. It was about closing the chapter forever, taking control of my life again. Once I posted the final version, I took a deep breath and watched as the reactions poured in. Some people expressed shock, others anger, and a few even supported me. A few tried to defend her, but the evidence was irrefutable. She was exposed, and the world could see her for who she really was. That night, I finally felt like I'd reclaimed some power. The guilt, the heartbreak, the betrayal, they all still stung, but I had turned the tables. No longer was I a victim. I was the one in control, and I'd made damn sure she'd pay for everything. I knew this wasn't going to be easy to forget or move past, but I was determined to rebuild. I'd take some time to heal to get myself back on track, but I also knew one thing: I'd never let anyone betray me like this again. The trust was broken, yes, but I was stronger now. I'd learned the hard way. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. And so, I started packing up her remaining things, ready to hand over the keys. She'd lost her place in my life, and the final step was to make it official. I went through her stuff, collected everything that belonged to her, and went to her house with a simple envelope. In it, I left the keys and a note: "It's over. Don't come back." As I slipped the envelope into her mailbox, I felt a strange sense of closure. No more games, no more lies, just a clean break. That's when I realized, sometimes you have to take control even if it means burning everything down first. The trust was gone, but I was still here, still standing. That's what mattered. And I promised myself I'd never let anyone hurt me like this ever again. In the days that followed, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The house was eerily quiet, but I didn't mind. The chaos had settled, the truth had come out, and I'd taken my power back. I no longer had to pretend to be fine, no longer had to hide my pain under a mask of civility. Now I was just me, raw, exposed, but finally in control. I spent those mornings walking in the park nearby, feeling the cool air against my skin, listening to the soft rustling of leaves. It was like I was trying to wash away the dirt of betrayal, trying to reclaim a piece of myself I thought I'd lost. I'd replayed everything: her lies, his deception, my own naivety, and vowed never to let it happen again. Looking back, I realize now how much I'd let myself be blinded by love and hope. I thought I was building a life, but really I was building a prison made of false promises. That's why I had to tear it all down. Sometimes you need to break everything to start fresh. I still feel the ache inside, those old wounds that refuse to fully heal. But I also feel something stronger, a quiet confidence that I did what I had to do, that I faced the truth head on, no matter how ugly it was. I finally accepted that some betrayals cut so deep, they can't be patched up. You just learn to live without the parts that once made you whole. As I write this down, I hope someone listening, or someone reading, can take away one thing: trust is precious, but it's also fragile. When it's broken, don't hesitate to take control. Don't let the betrayal define you. Sometimes you have to fight to reclaim your peace, even if it means burning bridges first. You can survive the storm. You might even come out stronger on the other side. For me, that's what this story is about. Not just revenge, but resilience. Not just pain, but the power to move forward. I handed over the keys, I closed the chapter, and I walked away knowing I'd finally been honest with myself. I learned that truth, no matter how harsh, is the only way to truly heal. And that's the lesson I'll carry with me forever.